So for the lie, personal safety requires isolation. One of the methods of transmission is through maltreatment. For example, when a child or if a child is being abused, whether that abuse is mental, emotional, physical, sexual, or spiritual, or all of the above, the abuse is associated with the presence of another human being. The non-presence of abuse or the absence of abuse when one is alone is associated with the lack of another human being. Meaning, so let me give you an example. I grew up in an environment where I was abused physically, mentally, emotionally, and sexually by family members. And didn't feel safe when people were around me. When I was left alone, when I was alone in my room, or when everyone left the house, that was the only time I felt safe. So that's how that lie was transmitted and implanted to me. Now, it does not have to be that overtly transmitted. It could be other methods of maltreatment or other situations that cause a child to feel safe only when they're alone. Now, another method of transmission is through observation. So if a child grows up observing individuals isolating themselves from others as a form of personal protection, then that child is also internalizing the lie, personal safety requires isolation. Another way this lie is transmitted is when a child hears adults making comments such as, "That's why I don't do people. That's why I don't do people. That's why I stay to myself." So what those individuals are telling the child is that it's not safe to interact with people. It's not safe to engage with people. You have to disconnect from people. That's the only way you can be safe. So as it relates to these lies being derived from other lies, if a person has been already programmed with some other relationship with self and relationship with other lies, this lie can be flagged in. Meaning, if someone was programmed to believe that they are at the mercy of other people's decisions, well, therefore, personal safety requires isolation. If I feel like I have to accept whatever you bring to the table and I'm not allowed to challenge it, then I would tend to want to isolate. That's the only way I can be safe. If a person has been programmed to believe that they have to compensate for their presence with goods and services, well, I can be safe if I'm alone because I don't have to pay you to allow me to exist. Okay, the meter stops running when I'm by myself. If a person has been programmed to believe that they have to accept abuse without question, they would tend to isolate. Okay, so the victim version of the lie is personal safety requires isolation. Now, there's not an exact villain version of that lie. It's just a combination of a bunch of villain lies that will cause a person to say, "Hey, I'm not going to be around people." So let me tell you let me give you a few examples. Some villain lies are people have to accept abuse from you without question. People are nerve-wracking and barely tolerable. People are at the mercy of your decisions. Your pleasure is of the utmost importance, even if it's at the expense of another human being's pain. Or the lie, you can hurt and abuse people close to you. You have the right to do this based on association. So those are just examples of villain lies that act that help. When people are in villain mode, they transmit victim lies. So people believe the victim lie, personal safety requires isolation, because they've been exposed to people who have villain lies. So let's talk about the adult manifestation of this lie in people's life, how it affects you as an adult. It causes people to isolate. That's real obvious. Personal safety requires isolation. And it also causes people to have shallow relationships, because you can isolate inside of a relationship. A husband can isolate emotionally from his wife. A wife can isolate emotionally from her husband or her children, and so forth. So that causes people to have shallow relationships, even in the context of marriage. But it also can happen in a boyfriend, girlfriend, or significant other relationship outside of the marriage, outside of the marriage dynamic. meaning that a lot of people who suffer with this lie, personal safety requires isolations, they won't commit to one person. So they go from person to person because they consider that they're protecting themselves, even though they interact occasionally with people, or they will have just short-term relationships. This lie also affects one's professional life as it relates to team dynamics and partnerships. Now, this is an issue that is actually one that I suffer with. It's in my top 10, as a matter of fact. And I have had to make some major accomplishments at addressing this lie in order for me to engage in partnerships with people. So I want to read the back of the lie card. I'm going to read the truth. Personal safety requires isolation. The truth is, I do not have to hide from life and people in order to be safe. As I learn to trust myself to protect myself, I will be able to interact with various types of people in various situations without fear. As I learn to make better relationship choices, and as I learn to pay attention to the clues and warning signs that others give as to the content of their character, I will be able to make better decisions as to how closely I choose to associate with individuals. I refuse to continue to hide from the world as if I am at the mercy of the decisions of others, and hiding is my only refuge. I can spot manipulators and abusers, and I can protect myself from them. It's not as if certain individuals don't give ample warning that they are predators. I will no longer hide from the world as a means of protection. So what's the solution? You're going to have to do some work. You're not going to be able to just read the nice shiny card one time and be totally free from this particular issue, especially if it's in your top 10, your Trump lies, if it's a Trump lie. And so you're going to have to do some work, and you're going to have to address this lie in combination with some other lies, the other lies that like to partner with it. So that's all for today's first lie addressing, for this month's first lie addressing video.